Oakland University has officially made standardized testing such as SAT and ACT optional for first-year students starting in the winter of 2026, following a temporary policy that began in the fall of 2020. I would love to explore and break this down more, so joining us live on The Splash is the Director of Admissions for Oakland University, Shane Lewis. Thank you for being here, Mr. Lewis.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
Now, I remember a time way back when I was going from high school to college in 2007 BC, before Corona, where we had to take these tests. But now it's a little bit different. Can you just talk about what factors influenced Oakland University's decision to make the test optional policy permanent?
Of course. Well, as you mentioned, we have been operating on a temporary test optional basis really since the fall of 2020 in light of the COVID pandemic. So at that time, you may recall, standardized testing just was not available. So we thought, okay, we need to support students. How can we do that in the short term? Let's make tests optional because they can't get back to test or to retest. Now, shortly after, we know the pandemic didn't end right away. So we decided at that time, let's extend this because we don't really know what the future holds. We'll extend it to fall 2025. So for the last couple of years, as we've been approaching fall of 25, which, as you know, comes in just a few months, we've been really taking a look at this policy and look at the impact of making this potential change permanent in order to really align with what we're seeing with some of the national and the regional trends in college admission.
Okay, interesting. And I would love to explore that. But are there any specific benefits that you're seeing it has for future students?
Of course. You know, we find that for students, there's a lot of anxiety in general with the college application and admission process. So one of the things we've been doing here at Oakland to try to dispel some myths, break down barriers through that process, is first and foremost by pursuing permanent test optional admission. One of the other things we did is this last year, we joined the Michigan Assured Admission Pact, otherwise known as MAP, which is basically a consortium of 11 of us public institutions here in Michigan, 11 of the 15, who are essentially assuring to students that if you have a 3.0, we will assure you admission to one of our institutions because, again, there's a lot of anxiety and apprehension about the college application process. And what we're trying to do is to help more students, especially students who might be the first in their families to ever go to school, to see that college really is attainable for them, that they can achieve this. And so, again, test optional admission is one of the ways that we can do that, to break down some of the fear, the anxiety over this process and say, look, we know national trends show, and actually Oakland data also shows, that high school grades are a much better predictor of whether you're going to be successful in college. That's why all of us have admission standards at all. We want to make sure that when students get to us, that they're going to be successful. Well, grades are really going to tell us much more about a student's ability to be successful than a standardized test. And so that's what we realized. Our faculty and staff agreed, and that's how we got here to this permanent change.
Interesting. You talked about trends and different things that you've noticed in regards to the grades and how it translates from high school to college. What about any key trends or successes you may have observed in applications and enrollments at Oakland University?
Well, for us, we have seen applications continue to grow since the pandemic. We did see a decline in first year and transfer students in 2020 and 2021 during that time. But we've seen some great growth in 22, 23, and 24.
Nice.
So for the last 3 years, we've been seeing growth in new undergraduate enrollment at Oakland, which is a really positive sign. Again, if we hope to meet the governor's goal of getting 60% degree attainment across the entire state of Michigan by the year 2030, we have some work to do. And so our hope is that we're going to continue to encourage more of these students to earn a college degree. We know, again, national research shows that students who complete a bachelor's degree are more likely to have higher lifelong earnings, to live longer, to just be healthier and live more healthy lives. And so why wouldn't we want more students to participate in higher education and earn those degrees so that they can make their best step forward towards the future that they're dreaming of?
Right. It would make sense, ultimately. Yeah, I get that now that you put it in perspective. And with us right here live on The Splash, Director of Admissions from Oakland University, Mr. Shane Lewis, talking about Oakland University officially making standardized test scores optional for first-year students starting in the winter 2026. Don't want to hold you up too much longer. Just a few more questions for you real quick. How do you feel like this change aligns with Oakland University's broader mission of diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education?
Absolutely. So some of the additional national trends we've seen just in regards to standardized testing in general is that a lot of times the tests can be construed as being biased. They support students who are able to afford test prep or to be able to retake those tests many times in order to get the score that they want. And we know that students, again, first generation college students, students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, they just don't have access to tools like that. And so they, on the whole, just aren't going to perform as well on the tests. They're not made for them. And so by eliminating this barrier, again, what we're trying to do is focus a bit more on access, making this more accessible to more students who, again, by their high school grades, we show they have the ability to be successful. So why not have faith in them that they can join us on campus, attempt to earn that college degree, and again, work toward that future that they're looking for. I'm a first generation college student myself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here without my university experience. It completely changed who I am as a person. And so I love that we have the opportunity to give that back in a greater way to the Metro Detroit community and Michigan as a whole.
Well said, well said. And just real quick, as the director of admissions for Oakland University, do you have any advice you would like to give to high school students in the greater West Bloomfield community who are preparing their applications under the test optional policy?
My advice, first and foremost, especially for those students who are maybe just starting those high school careers, is to really make sure that you're focusing on those grades, given that we are now one of 7 of the Michigan public universities that are permanently test optional. And so many of us are going to be looking more deeply into how you're performing in the classroom to see whether or not we want to be able to offer you a spot for admission. So I would say focus on your grades. I also would say get out there and visit as many schools as you can. You have to find what is the best fit for you. And so a lot of that is then taking those college tours, going on campus visits, looking at virtual tours if you're not able to get there physically, just making sure that you're exposing yourself to all the fantastic options we have here in Michigan.
Well said, and it means so much more coming from you directly too, sir. And we appreciate your time. Don't want to take up too much more. Like we said, join us right here live on The Splash, Director of Admissions from Oakland University, Mr. Shane Lewis. We appreciate your time and your information, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.